Hello, hi. In today's session, we're going to talk about the different types of energy. So basically, we shall look at renewable energy and try to find out what are the different types of renewable energy. And then we shall look at fossil fuels and also try to find out what are the different types of fossil fuels, the advantages associated with renewable energy, the disadvantages, if any, because in most cases we feel or we think that just because an energy resource is referred to as renewable, it's clean, and as such, it doesn't have any disadvantages. But however, along the way, you would notice that in the development of some of these energy resources or energy projects, all of them have advantages and they have disadvantages. And obviously, we shall look at the different types of fossil fuels. And we know this one, it has advantages, especially when it comes to addressing energy security and energy poverty challenges. But then it also has disadvantages, especially when it comes to the greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels and their impact to the climate. So in a sense, with fossil fuel uh, it has been recognized as one of the contributors to greenhouse gas emission, and as such, its impact on climate change cannot be ignored. So that's the main disadvantage of fossil fuels. They are termed as dirty fuels because of their impact to the environment, to the climate, and to the health of the people that use them or that come in contact with the pollution from fossil fuels. So to start, I will share my slides. Just a second. By introduction, I'm Dr. Victoria R Nalule, and today we want to talk about we want to analyze the various types of renewable energy. About me, I'm an author of 8 books. The recent book talks about renegotiating extractive contracts in the energy transition, but I also have a book on land law and extractive industries. I have a book on the energy transition and the future of the African energy sector. I have a book on mining and the law, which explores the social and environmental issues. There is also a book on energy poverty and access challenges in sub-Saharan Africa. I have a book focused on international arbitration in the African energy and mining sector. And also there is a book that talks about legal reforms in the mining sector. So the focus for today is to look at renewable energy, the different types of renewable energy, the policy actions for renewables, and then and then why countries choose to invest in a few types of renewable energy or a specific type of renewable energy. So renewable energy basically is very key because in recent years, countries want to address climate change as stipulated in the 2015 Paris Agreement, and also the UN SDG 13 is focused on climate action. The UN SDG, that is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 13 is focused on climate action. And that means that countries are now more focused to address climate change. And in the energy sector, that would mean that we have to let go of the energy that we see as being dirty. We have to let go of dirty fuels, that is fossil fuels, and then transition to renewable energy. So that's why renewable energy in recent years is very important because it's very key in addressing climate change. It's very key for the energy transition, but also it's very key in addressing the different energy challenges countries face, especially the challenge of energy poverty, open energy access. So, and the other thing is the potential of renewables is now significant for both cheap and sustainable energy. Renewable energy is becoming cheaper compared to other forms of energy. Obviously, when it comes to technology, those are expensive aspects that we cannot ignore, but it becomes easier to access renewable energy. Like for solar powers, You don't need to be connected to the grid. You can just get your solar panel, put it on your roof, whether you're in a village, wherever you are, you can be able to access energy. So renewable energy, obviously, is becoming cheaper, it's becoming more accessible, and also more flexible. And then the other aspect of climate change, we talked about renewable energy being key in addressing climate change, because if you're to let go of fossil fuels, the fuels that we think are dirty and that contributes greatly to the greenhouse gas emission, that means that you need to have an alternative. And that alternative would be renewable energy. Otherwise, you cannot stop utilizing fossil fuels without a cheaper alternative or a more accessible alternative. So renewable energy is the best alternative to fossil fuels, and as such, in summary, we can agree that it's very key in addressing climate change. So what do we mean by renewable energy? Typically, by definition, renewable energies are energy sources that are continually replenished by nature and derived directly from the sun, such as thermal, photochemical, and photoelectric, and indirectly from the sun, such as wind, hydropower, and photosynthetic energy stored in biomass, or from other natural movements and mechanisms of the environment, such as geothermal and tidal energy. So that definition is elaborated more in my book, in my 2018 book, which talks about energy poverty and access challenges in sub-Saharan Africa. If you go in chapter 2, uh, you will see an elaborated definition of what renewable energy entails. So we have different types of renewable energy. You would have wind energy, you would have solar energy, hydropower, and geothermal, and also other types. But you need to, in your free time, look out for other types of renewable energy besides wind, solar, hydropower, and geothermal. Look out for other types that would be considered renewable. And wind energy is produced by harnessing wind. It is basically understood as the conversion of wind energy by wind turbines into useful form, such as using wind turbines to make electricity, windmills for mechanical power, wind pumps for pumping water, or drainage, or sails to propel ships. So that is basically the simple definition of wind energy. And in this photo, you can see examples of wind turbines. So for you to be able to access wind energy, you would need the wind turbines to produce this energy. But then a question would be, what is the impact of this wind energy? There are various advantages associated with wind energy. First, it's clean. There is no air pollution. But then there are also aspects of noise pollution. We have seen examples in the UK, in Germany, where local communities protest against the establishment of wind turbines in their communities because of the noise and also their impact to wildlife, especially birds. There is some research to the effect that some birds are killed because of the wind turbines. So whereas there are so many advantages associated with wind energy, there are also some negative impacts associated with it which cannot be ignored. So that is something we have to really look out for and understand that yes, wind energy, it's renewable, it's good because it would help us to address climate change, and also it's one of the energy sources that could help us to transition to a low carbon economy. But remember, there are also some disadvantages that need to be taken into consideration. Then solar energy. Solar energy is produced through sunlight. So solar energy generation involves the use of the sun's energy to provide hot water via solar thermal systems or electricity via solar photovoltaic, that is PV, and concentrating solar power, that is CSP systems. Solar energy is mostly used for lighting purposes through photovoltaic conversion in the rural areas. So solar energy it's becoming very important, and many countries are embracing solar energy because first and foremost it's easy. It's easy to connect to solar panels. You just need your roof, you just need a place where you can put your solar panel and you would easily be connected. And this has made it easy, especially for rural areas that lack access to the grid. Because remember, with hydropower or even electricity that is generated from hydropower, you would need to be connected to the grid. You would need a transmission line. You would need that infrastructure in place. But then with solar energy, it makes it easy in that expenses you would have spent on establishing the necessary infrastructure would be cut down or would not be necessary because all you need is the solar panel, the batteries, the bulb for you to connect. So solar energy is also really becoming very important, especially as an alternative to the dirty fuels, that is fossil fuel, including oil, gas, and coal. Solar energy becomes a very good alternative. Then the other type is hydropower. Hydropower is derived from the energy of moving water. It is generated from water moving in the hydrological cycle, which is driven by solar radiation. Dams are the most prevalent form of hydropower. So hydropower it's good for countries that actually have access to this water. And in most countries, you would see they are getting they're getting their renewable energy through hydropower. But remember, with hydropower, it's also expensive because you would need the necessary infrastructure, you would need the dams, you would need to ensure that people are connected to the grid, you would need the transmission lines. So it's a good alternative, but also when it comes to the expenses, especially for establishing infrastructure, you would need to think about those expenses. And then there is also geothermal energy. And geothermal energy is an efficient way to extract renewable energy from the earth, and it originates from the formation of the planet and from radioactive decay of materials. So in countries like Kenya, they have really invested a lot in geothermal energy. It's a good alternative to fossil fuels because it's also considered to be clean compared to the dirty fuels. So now we move on. In your free time, you'll have to look at the various impacts associated with hydropower, impacts associated with solar energy, wind energy, and also, yeah, those are the main ones that you'll have to look out for in your free time. Now the question would be how to increase renewable energy. How can we ensure that more countries are utilizing renewable energy? First, countries would need policies that incentivize renewable energy deployment and discourage new fossil fuel development. But this would be tricky because you would have policies that are encouraging investments in renewable energy, but then you have to think about countries that are rich in fossil fuels. And would it be fair for them to discourage the development of fossil fuels in their countries? So this is something that policymakers have to think about, but the best thing would be to have a balanced policies that support both renewable energy and fossil fuels, especially for countries that ha that's that are rich with fossil fuel resources. Then electricity supply strategies that prioritize the diversity of resources such as dispatchable renewables and storage negate the need for fossil fuels and ensure supply security. Then in this regard, you need to find ways of enhancing the renewable energy development, and this would include electricity supply strategies that also give priority to the use or utilization of renewable energy. And the other thing is for countries to have policies that incentivize and support decentralized renewable energy systems that enable 100% access to affordable electricity. Uh, Countries would also need policies that support decentralized renewable energy systems, and this should aim to ensuring that people have access to 100% electricity. And this like electricity has to be affordable. Otherwise, if you keep prioritizing renewable energy, but then the final outcome is very expensive for the final consumers, then you are not solving the challenge of energy access or energy poverty. Because with energy access or energy poverty, besides the people having access to that energy, it has to be sustainable, it has to be reliable, and then most importantly, it has to be affordable. Then also there is a need for innovative financing mechanisms that allow decentralized solutions to thrive and be integrated into future grid expansion. So with renewable energy, it's not that it's cheap. Some are cheap, but also others are expensive. So you need to have financing mechanisms that would make it easy for investors to invest in renewable energy. And then also the other most important thing is having an enabling framework that attracts private sectors to the energy sector and builds human capacity by empowering local entrepreneurs. We need an enabling framework. First, you need the necessary laws, energy laws, and also laws focused on renewable energy. And then you would need like investment laws that are there to protect investors, because remember, energy investments are very expensive ventures. So investors have to be sure that their investments, wherever they are, they'll be protected. So that is an enabling framework to attract the private investors to invest in the renewable energy. So what are the advantages of renewable energy? For geothermal, you would have unlimited supply of energy, and then it produces no air or water pollution. So that is the advantage when it comes to geothermal. And then for solar or wind energy, they are infinite energy supply, and then they causes no air and water pollution. And then for hydropower, uh, it's abundant, it's clean, it's safe, it can easily be stored in reservoir, it's relatively inexpensive way to produce electricity, and then it offers recreational benefits like boating and fishing. So those are the various types, advantages associated with renewable energy. But however, there are also disadvantages associated with renewable energy. For instance, geothermal energy, it's costly to establish and maintain. It's very costly. It's not something that is cheap. And then wind or solar, it may not be cost effective, especially the technology. Not everyone can afford a solar panel, because if we are like countries, can they afford can they afford the solar panels or not? If it's expensive, then it would not be also as efficient as we would think or as we would expect it to be. And then variable and intermediate, there's the aspect of reliability. Now, like for solar energy, you have to rely on the availability of the sun. Otherwise, for countries that don't have sun or that don't experience a lot of sunlight, it will be hard for them to utilize this solar energy. And then for hydropower, it's capable of causing flooding, especially during rainy seasons for developing countries that have different types of weathers. During the rainy season, it would it would cause flooding. We have seen some people die because of the flooding in the dams, and then it can threaten livelihoods. It can pose social and economical risks, especially large dams, and then it can be affected by drought or lack of water. If a country is hit by drought and they can no longer have access to that water, then that means that it will be hard for them to do what? To access this hydropower, and then it may negatively impact on the wildlife. So in your free time, I would like you to look at the advantages and disadvantages associated with marine energy. Do you think marine energy is also a type of energy that countries should explore, and which countries right now are embracing marine energy? So that is it about renewable energy and the different types of renewable energy. But the key things to note here is, whereas renewable energy is seen as an alternative to fossil fuels, it also presents advantages, but however, we cannot ignore the disadvantages associated with renewable energy. It's good because it would help us to address climate change and also successfully or effectively transition to a low carbon economy. But then there are some disadvantages we cannot ignore. It wouldn't be sufficient or even effective in addressing energy poverty because, first and foremost, not every person can afford a solar panel. For countries, for communities that lack and access to the grid or that lack access to modern energy, most of them are too poor to even afford solar panels. And then the technology, the reliability, and also the fact that some of the renewable energy sources cannot power industrialization. They cannot power industries and factories. So it has limited use, and that implies that for some countries, it's either good to utilize both fossil fuels and renewables, or even balance the utilization of the two resources so that they can be able to ensure economic development. So that's it, and thank you very much for your time.